and welcome back to this episode of This Healthy Life podcast. I'm very excited for my guest today. I have Nidhi Pandya, and we're going to be talking about a topic that I have not had on the podcast, so super exciting. I think there's a lot of interest in this. So she is a NAMA certified Ayurvedic doctor, and she's a faculty member at the Shakti School of Ayurveda as well, and a breathwork expert on the Chopra app. So all very exciting, amazing, holistic health avenues that I think a lot of people are interested in. So excited for you to share your wealth of knowledge with us today. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Erica. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to speaking with you.
absolutely. So I'd love for you to start with a brief intro. How did you get into this space and share a little bit about your background and what got you here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm an Ayurvedic doctor, and for those who are listening, if you're not familiar with Ayurveda, but I will tell you what you might be familiar with is turmeric, ashwagandha, maybe oil pulling, maybe bullet coffee, and all of those, dry scrubbing even, it all comes from Ayurveda. Ayurveda is this ancient holistic health system that comes from India. While people think it's ancient, it's actually timeless. And it's universal. As long as the earth is rotating on its axis and there's revolution around the sun, Ayurveda is relevant because it's really the science of life. And I'm an Ayurvedic doctor. But I was born into Ayurveda. My grandfather was an Ayurvedic healer. I grew up in India in a large joint family. So my joke is Ayurveda is my first language. I love I learned to understand the world through its patterns and rhythms growing up in an Ayurvedic family before I understood even how to speak my words. Like that was the underlying subtext in anything any conversation we had at home, whether it was understanding of seasons or bio-individuality or time of day or properties of foods, like me, that's how I related to the world around me. So I grew up with that. And then I have a formal education in Ayurveda. And then for about the last, I would say, close to 15 years, I have been doing various kinds of work, including having a practice in New York and all around the world. But that's where my journey started, and this is where it's brought me. My main work, Erica, is that Ayurveda it's popularized in the West. It's in its early stages of what yoga was maybe 20 years ago. That's where it was. It's getting there. But it's practiced and taught very academically. My work is to bring it out to people in more of an intuitive, accessible manner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people hear the word and they have no idea what it means, or like you said, they're familiar with maybe some of the herbs and things like that, but they don't really understand kind of, how it works and how it's applied to your health and healing. So I'd love for you to kind of just do a deep dive into what is Ayurveda and like how does it work and why is this important to kind of make sure that we're integrating into our health and wellness as well.
Absolutely. So traditional Chinese medicine has become very famous in the West. And so a lot of you can compare it to Ayurveda, but Ayurveda being the science of life, it's the complete science of life because Ayu means life and Veda means science. And I think what Ayurveda, it has prevention and treatment of diseases. It has nutrition, it has lifestyle, it has fertility, it has childcare, it has social conduct. If it has to do with human life, Ayurveda has it covered. But what's the beauty, Erica, is that it's not covered prescriptively. It doesn't, while there are prescriptions, what is really the big crux of Ayurveda is understanding the patterns behind everything. And it's like once you understand, when you're learning music, once you understand the scales, you know how to read scales, you can play any music. Like you give you the song and you play it, right? So it's like literally like this, there's scales. There's an understanding of the patterns, of the rhythms, right? Whether it's day and night, whether it's seasonal rhythms, whether it's the rhythm of a human body from childhood to adolescence to old age, whether it's a new season in your body during pregnancy or postpartum or fertility, those years. So it understands that really, really well. The environment outside, the environment inside, how they connect with each other. It also understands the properties and aspects of foods in the same way. So when you're trying to live a life on this planet, you can quickly find a match of how do you exist. And it also understands bio-individuality. It understands that your body may be different from mine. So just to give you an example, right? Somebody who's like very dry, I'm just going to start right there, right? So let's say bio-individuality and the three types that it largely identifies into people who are just really dry and depleted. Somebody who's dry and depleted probably has dry eyes, gets tired easily, may even be bloated, right? Because bloating is like wind. May have some anxiety because anxiety is like that windy thoughts. That person, for example, would have a harder time in drier weathers at the end of the day. And when they're, for them, they may lose their youth quite early because they may feel depleted and frail very, very early. So then when I would pick foods and antidotes, I would think of body oiling. I would think of excessive rest. I would think of foods that have good fats. So it understands the climate of anything, the climate of the food, the climate of the environment, and the climate of the body. And that is, how do I integrate these through three? How should the interaction between these be to create a balance rather than aggravate the imbalance?
That makes sense. It sounds like it should be applied to everyone, right? I mean, these are things that we should be taking care of and being conscious of our environment and, what foods we're putting in our body and how our body is reacting to that and how you can kind of balance that. So I really, really like that. So, and I know with Ayurveda, there's the three different doshas, right? So can you explain like what that means and what they are? And
Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah.
I'm over my head with those.
Yeah, and I mean, because it's explained very academically, right, Erica? And that's exactly when I talk about bio-individuality, right? Now, in an ideal body, all the three doshas should be balanced. The three doshas stand for nothing but kapha dosha is the first dosha. And you never have to know the name. You never have to know jargon, right? I mean, that's really what I do, is that you never have to know the names. But basically, all our bodies, right? They're doing three main functions at all given points. Anything that exists in your body is either doing one of these three functions. The first function is building. So there are, like, for example, the cytoplasm in the cell when your cell is being built, and there's mucus lining, the saliva. These are all building substances. There's no metabolism happening here. These are like collection of substances. So that's building substances and building activities. And then there's also metabolic activities in the body. So things are transforming all the time, whether it's your digestion, whether it's your hormones, whether it's your color that changes in the sun, whether it's hormones and neurotransmitters that change through the day. Nervous signals, they're like the conductors, they're heat-led metabolic processes and transformation processes. So that's the second dosha. It's called pitta dosha. And the third dosha is governs all movement and drying and declining in the body, right? I think of it as a construction site. There's all this building that's happening. The heat is right, and things are kind of like this transformation that happens. And then what you do require for all of this is movement of substances, like your blood goes from your toes to your head, anti-gravity. So there's movement. And this same third dosha, which governs movement, also dries out what's not needed and says, hey, these cells, the cell is old, it doesn't need it, atrophies, and it's evacuated out of the body. So think of it like this. Somebody is hanging around with a wind blower, things moving things out, drying things, getting out of this. Your bowel movements, your urination, ejaculation, delivery, menstrual cycles. So all of us, right? If for the scientific minds, our bodies are constantly one of these three processes: anabolic, building, metabolic, transforming, and catabolic, breaking down. And these are the three doshas, literally. But what happens is that they should be in appropriate amounts, right? Like we should be building as much as inappropriately in an appropriate manner. But some bodies, your bioindividuality could be like, you like to build more. Like your body has an inherent tendency of building more, which means you have more tissue, you may have larger features, you may have diseases of anabolism like high blood pressure, diabetes, plaque, cholesterol, obesity. These are all like building, building, building. You may even be slow, be more sluggish. The digestion may be really slower. These people don't move fast. They don't have quick response times, everything, even the nervous impulses are slower. So that's the kapha dosha. But somebody's body could have an exaggerated metabolic function, which means the heat is exaggerated. They could have hormonal disruptions, heat in their digestions, acidity, which is again hot, burning in their digestion. They could really react strongly to the sun. They could have a skin rash, but everything is hot in their body, inflammation, which is most of us today, by the way. And those are pittas. And the third is the example that I used, vatas. Super catabolic. Everything is breaking down. They're depleted. They're dry. That force of wind that should be just moving substances and then just evacuating bowels and urine and menstrual cycles. Like now it's gone crazy in the body, so they can have dry skin, dry hair, anxiety, dry eyes, scattered movements, no grace. So these are the three doshas. Usually, people will take a dosha quiz. They won't really remember what this means, but it's basically, I tell people, examine your symptoms. Is it a building symptom, right? If you're experiencing acidity, you already know it's a heat-led symptom. If you're experiencing dryness, anxiety, dry eyes, it's a dryness-led symptom. You're putting on weight for no reason. If you're feeling so lethargic and dull and brain fog, and you already know it's a building, like your body's just sedentary. So I encourage people, instead of doshas are fun, but I encourage people to actually go out there and understand their bodies in a manner, whether it's building more, it's transforming, metabolizing more, or breaking down more. And then you can get more nuanced into it. You could have a dominance of two types, and but this is really where it is. Now, the fun part is, Erica, and I'm going to say this one last sentence before we move on, is that there is a place where all three of these are balanced. There's an actual climate that's palpable, that we can understand, you, me, everybody. And our job is, no matter where we are imbalanced, is to return to this optimum climate. So we have a North Star. And that is like, really, that's my work in Ayurveda, because it's not presented in the ancient text. It talks about imbalance, but not about balance. And all about balance only through, like, oh, I go for my blood exam, unless you have a symptom or your report numbers are off. We don't understand imbalance. Like, so then, and you don't even understand balance, by the way. So, anyways, there is a place that is balance, and you can actually experience it and feel it, not just intuitively, but actually you can in a palpable manner.
So when you find these imbalances, based on the different doshas, whether you discover your doshas or you're just working from your symptoms, what are some tools and ways that you work to balance people within the Ayurvedic kind of methods and treatments?
Yeah, so Erica, that's where we can each take each one of these independently and say, hey, if you had a balance, what would you do? But I think before that, it's important to understand what is that optimum place where all three doshas are balanced. So if you're having a kapha building experience, your body would feel almost slimy and sedentary and sluggish, right? Even cold and tense. If you're having a pitta experience, your body could feel very hot, either hot and dry or hot and humid, but it would be very. And if you're having a vata experience, which is the third one, your body could just feel very dry and possibly cool because the circulation is affected. So, the optimum climate where all these three doshas are balanced in your body, inside, is a place which is warm and moist. And this is really where, everything, all Ayurvedic treatments seek to bring you to warm and moist, but not warm and moist in a way that you can't, why is it warm and moist? Because I'm saying this? No. Our breath is warm and moist. Our blood is warm and moist. Our mother's milk is warm and moist. Our reproductive fluids are warm and moist. Your urine is warm and moist. We like warm and moist. We like warm people. We don't like cold. We like warm people, right? I mean, as warm-blooded mammals, we also don't like the room to be sticky or dry. We like it to be just moist. We don't like it to be cold. We don't like it to be hot. We like it to be just warm and moist. It's where, outside the balance of the sun and moon, similarly, our body, where, if we actually have a sun side and a moon side, and the center point is that warm and moist, just like love, gratitude, compassion. Anger is hot. Depression is sluggish. So I tell everybody, your North Star is warm and moist. And if you look at ancient traditions, they also brought in warm and moist to everything through their foods. So I say, let's start. I said, even if you don't know your dosha, even if you don't know your imbalance, you want to start bringing warm and moist into everything. What does this mean for foods, for example? It means you cook your foods. The very act of cooking your foods, which has made us human, by the way. Before that, we were as much apes and chimpanzees, as much like them, primitive mammals. So cooking your food is right, brings out the heat, and cooking releases moisture. There were traditions that you use fats and spices. Again, the fats are the moisture, the spices are the warmth. Yeah, yeah, it's and then the other traditions that did fermentation, right? Like they fermented, which is again warm and moist, because the process of fermentation is multiplication of bacteria. It's very inherently warm, and it's aerobic, so you'll see water droplets. So it's warm and moist, right? Even when people who ate salads, who didn't cook their foods, olive oil and vinegar, moist of the olive oil, heat of the vinegar. So all traditions. So you bring in warm and moist into your foods. Now, people who are excessively moist and sluggish already, they will just tone it down a little bit. They'll do a little less fat. They will do a little less. People who are very hot already, they will do a little bit of less spices. Not spicy. Spices are different from spicy. They will tone down a little bit on their spices. Somebody who's very dry would probably do a little bit more of the both, or both the warm and the moist. So, but everybody is moving towards the warm and the moist, and then you're changing the knob. You're regulating how warm and how moist depending on your existing inner climate of the body. But the same idea, right? For example, I'm just going to use another example because it can be extended to every area of your life. For example, somebody who's already go, 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 go. They're burnt out. Burnt out is what? Your inner climate is already hot and dry,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what the meaning of burnt out is. Anything that's
Yeah.
burnt out is hot and dry. Now, this person is doing more go, 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 is not replenishing, let's just say. Okay. And goes for a hot yoga class, becomes even more dry. Drinks 4 cups of caffeine, which you and I both know are dehydrating through our own experience, is more hot and dry. Then stays up at night to meet their friends because I need a social life. Then more hot and dry. Then drinks alcohol when they're outside. It becomes more hot and dry. So when you identify, right, your tendencies, now the same exact person could be like, oh my God, I'm hot and dry. So what am I going to do? I'm still going to go to my work, but I'm going to slow down. And there's plenty of things, Erica. There are breath work, breath practices that you can do while you're talking to somebody, while you're working. There's a way you can regulate your breath to bring in moisture, to settle the body. Then the person may say, I'm not going to go for hot yoga. I'll go for a restorative yoga class. I will not do caffeine. I will rearrange, right? That because that's the work I do. I teach you how to rearrange your day for maximum efficiency and productivity. So the person realizes, oh, I will rearrange my day. So I don't need the caffeine. I will arrange my day in this manner. And instead of meeting my friends over a drink, I'm going to ask them to come with me for a foot massage because my body is already hot and dry.
Yeah, that makes sense. And integrating all these new kind of like, I feel like there's a big movement, right? Instead of like drinking alcohol and doing these things that are really depleting, I think especially like the newer generation is really coming to terms with like what actually nourishes me, what actually balances me instead of depleting me. And so if you just kind of integrate some of these older Ayurvedic traditions, that's just going to enhance that even more. So kind of just getting back to roots, right? Getting back to like our original way of being before we kind of added all these things that really depleted us and wore our bodies down and, like you mentioned, cause more dryness, cause more heat, or cause these imbalances in the body, whatever method you
Absolutely.
want to call them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And understanding your inner climate just makes it easier because you know what you're moving towards. The same person could go overboard, take it so seriously that now it's become on the other side. It starts to build because it's like, I don't have to work. I'm going to sit down and then can become a sedentary person. So then you identify my inner climate has become sluggish. It needs a little bit of warmth. It needs a little bit of spice. So you start identifying that how deviated am I from that warm and moist? And then even triggers, right, Erica? It's the mental health is the same game. When we are triggered, we feel hot and dry inside. We feel this rush. When I work with my clients, I actually teach them how to feel like what are you feeling inside when you're aroused, when you're triggered, emotionally aroused. And they realize it's all this hot and dry. Then we bring tools to regulate it and come back to warm and moist, right? Safety, present moment, love, gratitude, compassion. They all feel very cozy, warm and moist. So the more we kind of start relating to the center point of warm and moist, the easier it becomes for us to come to that warm and moist. And in that, Erica, disease cannot occur. It's like this, right? 4.5 billion years, the climate on the planet was right. From single cell organisms, we became these full blown mammal species. No laboratory required, no scientific intervention required. Now the climate is wrong. And we're like, oh my God, are we going to make it? Is our planet going to make it? So, similarly, all we have to do is regulate the inner climate inside our body. And as a result, our microbiome will thrive and we will thrive. And we don't need to be, and our detox mechanisms will be upgraded. Naturally, your body will upgrade itself. And then we don't have to be so worried as we are. I mean, that's all my entire work is about just coming back to that in the easiest way possible.
So I'd love to talk a little bit about some of the foods. So you mentioned, using spices, using fermented foods and things like that. I'd love for you to talk about some of like the root foods that are part of like the Ayurvedic tradition and what they do and how you use them in like the healing process to balance people.
Yeah. So, Erica, to be honest with you, you can use any food. This is a myth that people say, oh my God, I have to eat lentils and I have to eat rice and you can eat whatever you want. You can live anywhere you want, right? And you should be able to eat your ethnic foods and things that grow there. But this is how you want to look at it, right? You want to always ask, how do I bring warm and moist to my foods and have a balanced variety of foods, whatever grows there you want to have. So, for example, if I'm living in the US, I would say, hey, what is the grain? Being a vegetarian, I'd say, what is the grain that grows here, and uh, what is the lentil that grows here? Because I'm a vegetarian, so I'll look at my protein. But I will make sure that when I'm cooking my grains and lentils, I will add a good spice to both of them to help them break down faster, because these are really heavy foods. So I have so many tools, right? Because things need to be broken down, and that spice is always, you add the warm and moist to everything. Plus I cook my lentils enough water, there's enough moisture, and I would have maybe a side of vegetables, because whatever is growing here, let's see, in the fall I'll go to the farmer's market again, I will add a little spice to it. uh, so as long as you're using good spices and good fats, and you're cooking foods, and you're working with the circadian rhythm, that's the second principle, that you want to work with the timing of the sun. So you can eat the same meal, you eat it at night, your body is not breaking it down and assimilating those nutrients. But as long as you're eating your biggest meal at lunch and you're cooking it and you're taking variety. Now, for somebody else, that could just look like meat and say, hey, I'm going to eat meat and rice, or I'm going to eat, this is my protein. As long as it's cooked, and everybody should eat a side of vegetables. Everybody should eat a side of vegetables, whatever is in season, whether it's cruciferous, whether it's whatever vegetables are around you, you want to eat them, and you always want to cook them, and you always want to spice them, and you want to use a good fat. And also, it's okay. You never have to eat turmeric your whole life, and you can still practice. People think, oh my God, I eat turmeric. And I've had the people who tell me, right, that, oh, I practice Ayurveda. I'm like, yeah, tell me more about how you practice Ayurveda. They say, oh, because I drink a turmeric shot every day. That's
You're like, that's not going to do it. That's not
yeah.
warm. It's moist, but not warm, right?
No, and also that, yeah, firstly, it's not warm. You're absolutely right. And secondly, it's so potent. Like when you have anything that's hot without anything that's moist, right? Like even spices are sauteed, they're kind of bloomed rather in a good fat, because you always want that balance. Otherwise, it's like a planet which only has the sun and doesn't have the moon. It's so hot. People have apple cider vinegar. Oh my God, just like raw. Foods that were fermented were like a cabbage was fermented, for the sauerkraut, or an olive was fermented, or kimchi is, people ate fermented foods. There's a substance to it, so you're not just eating the fermented part. You're not just eating the acidic part. You're actually eating something that's astringent with it, so your body stays healthy. So long story short, right? Small amounts of fermented food right before you eat that is native to your tradition, whether it's sauerkraut, whether it's a couple of olives, whether it's just soaked in lemon juice, whether it's a couple of teaspoons of yogurt, kimchi, whatever it is, right? Great, great. Cook your foods, use a good fat. A good fat is that which has not, if it's an oil, it cannot be refined. It cannot be put through heat. If it's refined, it's fossil fuel in the body. It's just fossil fuel. It's toxic, just the same exact way the fossil fuels are outside. But if it's
And it's just going to
expelled,
cause more imbalance, by doing these things, right?
more global warming inside, more inflammation. Like there's global warming outside, inflammation inside, same thing. No different at all. So no refined oils, but you're using extra virgin olive oil, extra virgin sesame oil. You're using cold pressed, coconut, if that's native to you. If that's native to you, you can also use ghee. Ghee is a cultured fat made out of cultured butter, and it's cultured. It's the only fat which has it's a probiotic fat. The only fat that's probiotic, that cooking fat that's probiotic. But you want to use only cultured ghee, because sometimes you have just plain clarified butter. That's not ghee. Anyways, that, and a good spice is that which is still in the spice aisle of your grocery store, but it's not going to burn your tongue. So if your idea of adding spices is like habanero peppers, that's going to burn your mucus lining in your gut like instantly. But cumin and cloves and cinnamon stick and bay leaves and cardamom, whatever it is. But I tell people, go back to your tradition. First go there, and then go and befriend. Go to a spice aisle, smell all the spices, see which ones invite you. But first start with what your great grandmother ate. That's where you start. And then you extend to others. But always heaviest meal between 10 and 2. Lightest dinner has to be before electricity. Erica, I'm studying, I have to say this right now, because I'm studying centenarians in India. And these are people who live 100 years plus, no medical intervention. Some of them live close to these toxic, polluted factories, next to all this waste. And they still have
And they're
no
fine.
control, no
Wow.
blood pressure, no diabetes, nothing. And what we found is that they were from the lower economic stratas. They were not biohackers, by the way. They were lower socioeconomic stratas. They conserved electricity, and they did not have refrigeration. So they were eating like our ancestors did before electricity, which is so recent. Only 1930s is when electricity electrified the world and created chronic disease. Because before that, we were not eating late dinners. So you want to eat an early dinner and a light dinner and a big lunch. And eat whatever you want, just eat it in this way. And I also tell people, if you indulge, it's fine. When you understand these principles well, you always know how to balance it out. You know what your antidote will be. If you're going out for dinner, it's your birthday, enjoy it. Get a side of warm, ginger tea or a chamomile, or there are many ways you can get around it. So you want to just understand your body and the way it works so you can start making a judgment, just as you and I could both go to a really hot place, and we both would know how to balance ourselves. Maybe you say, I'm just going to wear a tank top, Nidhi, and I'll say, I'm just going to use an umbrella. I don't care about a tank top, but I'm just going to. So, but because we could have different tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone's different. Everyone has a different form of balancing too, right? I mean, what's going to
Whatever works.
balance you is going to be different for me, as long as we're
Yeah,
at some point getting back to that body balance.
getting back to warm and moist. Exactly.
Yep, absolutely. And then, so what about some of these newer health trends, but also kind of older, right? I mean, fasting has always been a big part of, culture, diet, whether it was for religious reasons or cultural reasons or just health reasons. Intermittent fasting is a big thing that everyone is looking at doing, fasting mimicking diets. How does fasting play a role in Ayurvedic traditions, and is there a time and a place for it?
Yeah, in fact, like Ayurveda has tons of text on fasting. It is one of the therapeutics, right? But the problem is, Erika, we go extreme with everything.
Yeah.
We find a trend and let us beat this trend to the point that it's no longer useful. Like nothing in excess. We don't take the middle path. In fact, one of the Ayurvedic Sanskrit opening verses in one of the textbooks is the middle path. So we were supposed to be intermittent fasters, okay? We stopped eating when the sun set because we were not sitting and lighting big lanterns, and saying, okay, let's have a big dinner party. We weren't doing that. And then we started eating. We had maybe in winter months, stews, and that's why the whole idea of eating your soup, eating your supper. And then we didn't eat. So our bodies were fasting. I actually come from a tradition in Erica where my parents have never we eat before sunset anyways, most days. I mean, my mom for the last 50 years has eaten before sunset.
Do you eat
So,
breakfast? Is breakfast what's
so
the is
also
breakfast integrated or no?
sunrise. So you
Sunrise,
don't
okay.
sunrise, right? So there's sunrise and 48 minutes after sunrise. So you're giving your body, just as the earth settles, right? There's a period at dawn where the earth is settling. And I invite people not to listen to me, but just to tune into the sounds. Wake up one morning, go to nature and see how that bird chirping and activity changes on the other side of sunset. And similarly, inside our body, there are inhibitory mediators that our entire chemistry looks different. With inhibitory, there's GABA and prolactin and all of these things that are helping us to rest and refuel, literally moisturize our body at night. But in the morning, excitatory mediators come up, which serotonin and acetylcholine and all of these guys, cortisol, blood sugar rises. And that whole process takes about 48 minutes. So ideally, if you could wait 48 minutes after sunrise, you've come to the other side. And your body is now settled in this phase, and you're not consuming in that transition time where your digestion is actually the weakest. To have a little bit of water, a little hot cup of water with a little ginger powder, not a problem, because you're actually supporting the excitatory mediators. You're actually supporting your body to wake up. But otherwise, to eat a big breakfast while this is happening. So a lot of traditions understood these rhythms. And not only Ayurveda, they stopped eating before sunset and started eating 48 minutes after sunrise. And that's your intermittent fasting. But there could be other bigger forms of fasting. Not everybody needs it. In fact, we have such elaborate, I feel like if doctors read Ayurvedic texts, they would be like, we cannot read anything else because everything is explained in such great depth. The do's and the don'ts, who's eligible, who's not eligible, why. So fasting for somebody who has excessive toxins in their body, is overnourished, has a sluggish digestion, they can be very useful. But even then, there's certain protocols that you must follow to fast. It's not just all or nothing, And It's person by person basis. But if you're eligible for it and your body has toxins and it's overnourished but its digestion is sluggish, some form of fasting, whether it's just broth in the night and a big lunch, that's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
Can be very, very useful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Yeah, because it's like, such a rage right now, but I'm wondering like kind of like what are those ancestral traditions and what was their kind of perspective on it? But it makes a lot of sense, syncing with the circadian rhythm and eating when it's light. Like those are things that we probably should all be doing. Eating late, we all know is so bad for us. So, trying to get back into that rhythm with our body. So speaking of body rhythm, obviously mental health and emotional health is a big part of being balanced and being healthy. So what sorts of ways does Ayurvedic kind of help not treat, but like support your mental health and emotional health? I know you mentioned breath work and kind of doing like maybe like a little bit more restorative yoga, but what are some other methods that you can integrate to try to
Yeah,
restore your body from that
yeah,
perspective?
absolutely. And Ayurveda has a lot, right? So not only protocols, but also a deep understanding, like the understanding of the fact that we carry scripts from lifetimes, but even if it's from this life, and understanding that, in fact, the starting paragraph of Ayurveda is disease begins when you lose equilibrium. Because you lose equilibrium, your biochemistry changes, and you also make decisions, right? You eat that one extra bag of chips, or you stay up a little bit extra because you're worried at night. So when you lose equilibrium, disease begins. So there's a lot you can do to come back, right?
Yeah, and
Firstly,
I think that's interesting that you say that too, because I mean, if you think about the word disease, it's dis-ease, like
lack of
you're
ease.
not ease, you're not at ease anymore, right? So it makes total sense that you're losing that equilibrium, you're losing that balance in your body that just needs like a little extra support to get back into its rhythm, right?
Basically, absolutely. That's it. You said it right? It's that lack of ease that leads to disease, right? So of course, so there's a whole process when I work with people where I say, okay, that acceptance, understanding, and then you use tools. So I have taken all of these tools, and I'll tell you what those tools are. I'll give you examples of those tools, and I've created, like, I ask my people to create a toolkit. So they're tools that you do every day that are preventative, and I'll tell you what some of those tools that Ayurveda employs. Preventative is something that you do before you get on the battlefield of life. So you've woken up, like life has not even hit you yet. And one of these big tools in Ayurveda is oil massage, abhyanga. Not only, so you just as you would moisturize, but instead of moisturizer, you're going to use oil on the body. And that oil, creates a very soothing impact, and your self-touch. It releases oxytocin, it does lymphatic drainage, but it really, really settles and grounds the nervous system. In fact, the word for oil is sneha, which also means love. So it's a very self-loving practice, and it makes you feel very safe. And there are plenty of other benefits, health benefits, but I'm not going to get into that. So that's one of my preventative. I give people an a la carte menu. But there's also humming. Om is such a big part. Humming sets you off into the parasympathetic, and you don't have to om if you don't want to, but you could just hum a song. Music, we use music as well as a preventative, right? Because there's 7 notes, there's 7 chakras, 7 endocrine glands in the body. And your entire fight and flight and rest and digest is all, it's like the movement, the keys of the endocrine glands, right? The neurotransmitters shift in the body. And just think of it like a keys of a piano. Somebody, like a little kid, is banging on the piano. That's what really your fight and flight is. And there are these seven endocrine glands, or 7 chakras, you can call them. And music, classical music especially, is designed to release certain neurotransmitters that bring calm. But there's a lot of other things. There's other types of breath work, alternate nostril breathing. There are other practices, putting up your legs up against the wall. So those are your preventative. So there, Ayurveda and yoga, they both come together to give you a big list of preventative tools. And not
And
everybody.
then do these work across the board no matter what dosha you are, or no matter what's out of balance? Like they're effective tools for everything, or are there certain tools that are more effective for certain imbalances?
Beautiful question. So if somebody who's more of a builder, right, who's more building, they are likely, their body doesn't so much go into, their fight or flight can look a little different. It looks more like a freeze. They freeze, they get stuck. And for them, some of the tools that they will use, like oil is still a good tool for them, but they may use like a sport or a run or movement, right? Because they're sluggish. So what brings them to warm and moist from that sticky, slimy, sluggish place is a little bit of stimulation. You still do the oil. Maybe even their music is designed for more stimulation. It's more focused music. Not everybody has to do everything, but you need to have a whole range of tools, right? They may not be your meditators. I mean, if you have to ask them between meditating and dancing, I'll say go dance. Go don't meditate. It's okay. Go dance. Go on and get on a bike, and that also creates symmetry, rhythm, being on a bike. But everybody also needs repair, like a battlefield tools. When you actually get on the battlefield of life and you're stuck in traffic and that boss has triggered you and your mother-in-law has called you, and we all need those tools as well in the moment.
Yes.
So there are other tools for that as well. There are other tools at the moment, and then there's repair tools, and the repair tools is we all need to heal from life. We all need to heal from the day, mini healings from the day, because that's how all bad coping mechanisms, I should not say bad, unhealthy coping mechanisms, alcohol, sex, excessive food, binge watching TV, all happen at night because we need to heal from the day. But if you already have a plan in place to heal from the day, whether it's a hot shower, whether it's journaling, whether it's again putting our legs up against the wall, then you never need to actually have another unhealthy coping mechanism. Ayurveda and yoga come together to really, like, I think they've really like spearheaded this whole idea of mental health way before it's become mainstream. And it doesn't matter honestly where it comes from, even though I'm saying Ayurveda and yoga. The truth is, if you can understand it, to what regulation looks like, and I find it so sad, Erica. People here in New York are like, "Oh, I have to meditate because it keeps me calm." I'm a big meditator myself, but I do know that it's not. It should never be the first tool in your toolkit. You need to have all the low hanging, easy
Yeah, the easy ones that don't take too much time,
first.
right? That
No, yeah,
aren't that big a commitment.
also effort, right? Like the
Yeah.
time, effort, because how difficult it is to sit with yourself. So there's regulation, right? It's like a crying kid needs to settle first before he can become quiet. So our nervous systems are crying. You can't just be like suddenly you become quiet. It's very hard. The journey is very large, and people cannot do it. And that's why breaking it down like this: that preventative, battlefield, and repair. And keep it easy, from music to dance to sport to breath to oil massage. And then you become, your body knows how to regulate, and then you can do something that's deeper and larger.
Yeah. No, I like how you break that down because, a lot of times you think like meditation, for example, is like your universal solution and tool for all of those things. But I think it's true. You kind of like, depending on what you're feeling and what kind of got you into that state, you need to have something to balance you out of that state. And it's going to be a different tool for all of those situations, right? So I think that's a really good takeaway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. So we have time for one more question. So I want to talk a little bit about your program. So you have a program that's Your Body Already Knows, an intuitive Ayurveda 21-day reset. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that and what people can experience with that.
Yeah. So that is my book, Erica. And then my book is called Your Body Already Knows. And what the book actually does, it gives people a framework, right? It's like an intuitive way of living. How do you come back to your wisdom? The premise of the book is, and it has everything that you and I talked about and a lot more. But the premise of the book is that deer doesn't need a prescription to know that it needs to wake up every day and eat grass. Neither does it, oh my God, I have to eat grass again tomorrow. And, and tigers don't get carried away and wake up in the morning, early in the morning, and say, I'm going to start waking. I'm going to be like these strong goats that wake up in the morning. Tigers won't do that. Animals know what to eat when they're nursing. I've seen bears eat big cabbage heads right before they go to hibernate so that they can have a bowel movement. And when they're injured, when animals are injured, they know what exactly soil to roll in. I mean, we've seen animals smell and pass on foods that's not meant for them. So the whole idea is we know, our body already knows. We've lost our wisdom. But this book gives you a framework. The framework it gives you the understanding of the inner climate, the circadian rhythm, and another third principle. And then it teaches you how to bring it into your day by day by day, over a period of 21 days. Simple, sustainable shifts that will give you the maximum impact and have you fight your biggest battles without at ease, because it's not learning through information. It's learning through connection, awe, and wonder. And
And
when
your
we
intuition, right? And like connecting back to your body.
and also we forgot what our intuition is, but it gives you a framework to tap into your intuition.
Yeah,
The thing is,
absolutely.
we don't know how to tap into our intuition. Even people who believe in intuition are like, I don't know what my intuition is telling me. Like, that's what people do, right? So it gives you a framework so that you know exactly if it's your intuition that's speaking, or it is your trigger that's speaking, or it's a condition that's speaking.
Yeah.
And so once you understand that, and you understand our place in this universe and the rhythms and how we are meant to live, I tell you, it's a joke. Health becomes a joke. And you almost wonder that why is like this entire multi-billion-dollar industry is here only because to keep us further away from ourselves. So my book, and also run a 21-day program where I work one-on-one. We do a lot of inner child work. We heal lifetime traumas, and then we start this program as well. And then we do a little bit more personalized stuff. But really, my entire life's work is for people to reconnect with their wisdom, either through my programs, through my book, through my Instagram, through my website, through everything that I do.
Awesome. Amazing. And if people want to find you and work with you and find your book, what's the best place to find you?
My website, nidhi.me, my first name .me, or nidhipandya.com. Nidhi Pandya Ayurveda, you look it up, hopefully you will find me. They're not, it's a unique name, so there may not be too many of us, you'll find me. And then Instagram, I post quite regularly on my _Ayurvedic_life. So, simple tips, and I explain the logic and the connection behind what I say.
Amazing. And we'll link to everything in the show notes as well so people can find you and your book as well.
Thank you so much, Erica.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this. I really love kind of, getting a different perspective on health and hearing ways that you can balance yourself with, making lifestyle changes, not just, taking another supplement or doing another thing, but like really kind of tuning into your body, making those changes and balancing yourself from within. So thank you for sharing all this information.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.